for the next session, we have a panel discussion entitled Stories for Disruption, Policy, Technology, and Non-Formal Education. For this session, it will be moderated by none other than our very only Sarah Rita Catan, a World Scout Committee member.
Now, Sarah Rita Catan was elected to the World Scout Committee in 2017. She's been entrusted with the strategic oversight of the educational methods work stream. She's also a member of the Continuous Improvement Unit. She was a part of the planning team for the last 2 World Scout Education Congresses, and she has been heavily involved over the years with youth engagement. Sarah is an architect by profession, and she also teaches courses related to public interest design, develops projects that engage community in development, capacity building, and active citizenship. So, Sarah and the panelists, please welcome on stage.
Hello, everyone. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this special panel discussion about stories of disruption, technology, non-formal education, and policies. I would like first to introduce the panelists that we have today with us. Eliel, the founder of the fledgling app. Igor Lasardino, the design manager of Prezi. Maria Quevedo, the managing director of Raspberry Pi Foundation. And Camila Camillo, the community manager of Fab Lab Livre SP. So, to brief you a bit about the session and the topic that we're talking about today, we know that the 21st century is a synonym of disruption and innovation. And we've talked about the 4th Industrial Revolution, and it made all modern world infiltrate all the aspects of our human lives. So when we think today of how many people have mobile phones in the world, we have over 5 billion people who have mobile phones today, which means more than 60% of the world population have a mobile phone. Also, the kids at the age of 12 begin to get their first mobile phone, which means this changes a lot the daily habits of everyone and the way we deal with those devices that are within our hands, as you can see here as well. And it's not easy for parents and educators to actually deal with this and cope with this change. So this change in new technology and this digitalization made the society really need to adapt and change to all those modifications that are happening within it. And this is not very easy for formal institutions, as we discussed also over those past years. So in that regard, non-formal education, which also adapts to the changes of everything that's happening around it and takes into consideration the trends that we have, and technology, we can see some similarities in them. We can see that also they developed in a world where policymaking was the center for all those kind of impacts that we want to see in the world around us. So how can non-formal education be inspired by technology? How can it be seen as a more positive evolution that we have? And in order to understand a bit and to frame this discussion, we are going to talk first about the perception of technology and non-formal education with experts here in the world of technology as well. And we're going to see after what are the effects, what are the benefits of technology in the learning process of young people and adults, and how we can actually find applications or how can we integrate technology within the world of non-formal education and policy making. So there's a lot of questions here and very exciting questions to answer, and thank you all for being here to do that discussion. But I would like first to hear your thoughts on that. So I'm going to ask you to use Slido application, talking about technology. So, and the question that you will have in front of you by scanning this QR code is, in one word, how does technology impact your life today? So in one word, how does technology impact your life today?
Interesting.
I have to. So we can see a lot of words that are coming up here. Complicates, addiction, makes me anxious, productivity. So we have a panel here that can actually give us some thoughts about those words that you can see. Can Igor?
Yeah, I just can. It's funny to see how we always associate technology with negative things because we are constantly on social media, and we've been seeing that social media affects us in a way. It gets us anxious. We see somebody else's life better than ours, so we got to show that our life is better as well. But there are many researches around that say technology is seen as a bad thing, mostly by millennials, but actually, I guess in a Pew study from last year, it shows that around 40% of the people that were researched think that technology brings benefits to their lives. So if you take aside the social media and the negative parts that technology is bringing to you, think about technology as not just your mobile phone or Instagram or Snapchat. Technology can bring you way more benefits than we actually think nowadays.
Perfect. So let's start with that to actually jump in the first part. And this cloud of words will help us really talk about the first part that we're going to discuss, which is the perception of technology and non-formal education and how they're linked in some way. So as we know and we've established during this forum, non-formal technology really affects and takes into consideration all the trends and all the changing reality that we are in, and it adapts to them. Well, at the same time, it's very difficult to assess the learning process of non-formal education to see if we really learned something out of this or out of technology. I see a lot of words that are coming up about the technicalities of technology in this room. So, technology also is perceived, as we see here, as a disconnection, as less interaction, as
That's the power of community for you.
Sure.
we understood that the Wi-Fi doesn't work. I think it's there now, so everyone can say it. So as we see, so let's focus back here with our panelists. So as we see that technology is distractive, it disconnects us sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't link us together. And it is perceived that way by formal institutions sometimes that find it really difficult to connect with people when they're on their phones, for example, or when they're teaching them something. So how can we, or why would we see that technology and non-formal education are both disruptive?
I think we have to start by looking at technology in a different way. At the Raspberry Pi Foundation, what we try to do is allow people to access technology and to try to transform the relationship with technology, to learn to make things with it. All our programs, non-formal education programs, we're teaching young people to code, we're teaching young people to make things with technology so that they can solve problems that matter to them, to connect with their community, and to be creative. So what we need to do is stop looking at technology as something that happens to us, but something that we can control, and try to be makers rather than consumers. And then I think the relationship will kind of switch, and the power will also switch.
Yeah. The chaotic aspect of technology is here also challenged. Someone else wants to add something? Ellie?
Yeah, I think when we think about non-formal education, I always think of it as quite a high-touch thing. And an experience that maybe is traditionally quite face-to-face. But I think there is a huge, opportunity for technology in in the space of non-formal education, and at Fledgling that's what we're trying to achieve. But I don't think that technology could completely replace that, that sort of more traditional face-to-face experience. I think they need to go hand in hand in a blended way. Yeah. Obviously, that creates its own challenge in a way, because you've got this sort of dichotomy of something that can scale really quickly, and then something that really can't, and is quite high touch and takes a long time. And getting that balance right is quite difficult, but absolutely needed if we're going to equip our kids for the fourth industrial revolution. We need to embrace technology.
Well, considering okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Considering perception of technology in formal education in society, in São Paulo, for example, in our labs, we believe it's not about formal education or non-formal education. It's about how people learning. And on Fab Lab Livre SP, our technicians, for example, are mentors, not teachers. They help everyone make their projects, but not do the job for them. Their rules is stimulate creativity and principally celebrate when someone gets the realize new something, or make a new discovery or learn. So we can talk about the trends for learning and connections with no formal education. Some like really value growth mindset development, maker learning, digital fabrication, Bloom's taxonomy, digital literacy, or citizenship. So, I'm sorry, I write my answers.
You're doing well.
Okay.
Well, we believe we need to prioritize project-based learning, personalized learning, and stimulate the genius hours or aha moments.
Yeah.
Because in all time, we need teaching empathy. And I believe robots and code comes naturally after massive use of technology. And the digital natives learning differently. If we stimulate the personalized learning and gamification, we can more chance to capture engagement, and again, code and robotics come after.
Okay, thank you. That's very focused, because then we need to look at technology and how it helps us learn, and not just like fit in educational proposal that we actually have already set. And what I pick also here from the discussion is that we really need to combine and not think of technology as a replacement, right? But rather of a combination of learning methods. I just want to share one example of scouting as well. Because, I mean, for us, at the beginning, when we had mobile phones everywhere in the world, we felt it was a bit of a threat for the way we act as scouts. I mean, usually we talk about camps and connections and people. So the phone was kind of a distraction. I mean, where you would be connected to the world instead of being connected to your friends within the camp, where you need to actually build those kind of team values within that kind of setting. And what we did afterwards is really to think that maybe we can do both at the same time. We can still be connected to the world, talk about what scouting does, and at the same time connect together and know when to use technology and when not to use technology. And one example that we shared of it yesterday is, you're familiar with Jota Joti, I guess, some of you here. So we have a we have a camp. We have usually camps that we do all over the world to connect scouts all over the world together that are physical. But 60 years ago, we wanted to connect people also through different kind of methods without really making them physically move from one space to the other. So we created Jota, which is the Jamboree on the air with radio channels, which evolved to actually chatting on the internet today, and we have a Jamboree on the internet as well, and more streaming. And that today combines 1 million and a half scouts every weekend, every third weekend in October, every year. And you can imagine that 1 million scouts and 2 million scouts connected through technology today can feel this global kind of values and all that kind of connectivity while still attending virtual campfires where we have sessions, where we talk about different kind of topics that interest them, and at the same time we can talk about the different interests and let them connect together and interview each other. So it's a way also to integrate technology while still keeping physical camps and at the same time having virtual ideas.
And also, sorry, evolving what you've done. I mean, you discovered there was a technology that was allowing you to do it in a different way. And I think, we need to adapt. It's a very rapidly changing world. And we need to adapt and harness the power of technology to now enable us to enjoy it better.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for sure, use this technology the right way. We've never written and read so much as previous generations. So right now we need to use this opportunity that we have, the new Gen Z, we are calling them the creators. So technology comes to this new generation as a tool for connecting and getting people together.
Yeah, thank you. So moving on to the second part, which is about the effects and the benefits of technology in the learning process, as Camilla already mentioned before. So we know, again, and we focused a lot on non-formal education as a self-directed education, where the young person that is at the center of education, where also the people are, like the young people and the adults are own agents of their own development. So the skills in this kind of setting are different. The learning environment in which they learn is different, and the role of the learners and the teachers is different as well. So technology helps us in a way with the methods also to actually implement that kind of change in skills, in roles, and environments. So what do you think the technology can bring to the learning process? And how we can actually, in terms of skills, in terms of environment, in terms of roles, how can we improve and integrate well both together? Ali?
So just, I guess, sharing an example from the UK around how non-formal education and formal education can work well, and the role of the teacher in that. So I don't know what it's like across the world, but I'd say careers advice in non-formal education is often left to the librarian or the music teacher within school. No offence to librarians and music teachers, but it's often a sort of sentence at the end of their job description. And what we're doing is really sort of equipping them with the tools and the toolkit that they need to really understand sort of the what it means to, this fourth industrial revolution means for the kids that they're teaching. And so I think there's a role with technology to play in upskilling the existing people who are supporting non-formal education. But there's also a huge role to play in young people teaching each other as well through platforms in the form of mentoring, of giving back. And I think this generation, more than ever before, seem to want to give back earlier and earlier and support those coming through. So, for example, we have a team of 30 young writers who write for us, and their content is displayed on our app, on our blogs, and they're so motivated to want to help those even 4 or 5 years younger than them to share those lessons. So I think that technology provides an opportunity and a platform for new teachers, not thought of in a traditional way as well.
Yeah.
In the teaching of computing, there is a lot of project-based learning. So young people will complete projects following, when we give them our content, they will follow some steps. And so they will all be working at different speeds, and it is a bit of a chaotic environment, and it's very different. But there, the role of the teacher is very, very different. They are no longer the person at the front who knows all the answer. They often are the person who facilitates and reminds the young people to look at the steps, to check and to test their project, and also provides for the teacher themselves a very safe environment for them to learn computing themselves. So it's a new relationship. It's learning by doing, and also being creative. And when you create something with programming, there is a lot of testing involved. And the user, the end user, is really, really important. So when we teach computing in a non-formal setting, we encourage young people to help each other, to test each other projects, to give each other feedback. So again, the relationship is very different and a lot more dynamic. And alongside, of course, they learn all these 21st century skills that we've been discussing over the past few days.
And how does technology help with the testing kind of idea?
How technology helps.
Yeah, I mean, usually when we test something, it takes a lot of resources to test. I mean, technology is kind of flexible in that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I mean, you test I would say what technology is helping to learn programming is there is a university created a new program called Scratch. I don't know if people are familiar with Scratch. It's what is called a visual language. So instead of having to be very, very precise when you write your program, you can put the blocks together, and each block is an instruction to the computer. So that really facilitates the teaching and learning of computing much faster. Without that, you couldn't really start learning programming until you are, 13, 14, but with Scratch, you can start as early as 9.
Yeah. Thank you. Yes, Igor.
I can just say, for example, at Prezi, we have more than 100 million users coming to our platform all day searching for content. One of the most popular presentations we have is around the Ebola outbreak that happened a few years ago. People come to platforms to look for verified content, real content that they can share on their informal or formal spaces. And in our user base, a huge chunk of these users are teachers, students from both sectors, formal and non-formal. And lately, we just heard a use case of a teacher that actually used our new tool called Prezi Video to give homework to his students. So he just recorded a video with a question, and then the students would just watch this video, clicking reuse, and they would record a response to it. And then everybody on the classroom would just watch that same content, and then they would share their ideas, and they would discuss about it, totally in a remote manner. So I just feel like technology is enabling for more communication and these new ways of bringing content to either classrooms or outside the classrooms. There are many ways we can be creative today to use technology.
But also you're mentioning the fact that some people trained in non-formal education can actually teach technology in an easier way to young people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For example, I come from a non-formal education setup. I got my job because of a non-formal education program from Prezi, actually. I had to teach people how to design presentations at universities here in Brazil. And because of that, and because of the soft skills that I acquired during this process, I could get a job, and now I'm still there. So on that point, I just feel that tech companies and technology today, they are going to go ahead and try to teach people these skills if we don't, because the market needs it, and I think non-formal education has a huge opportunity to train these people and prepare them for the future. I don't interview people today, and the first thing I ask them about their soft skills. Sometimes I don't even care about their formal education background. I just want to know that they are actually good at what they do and their soft skills are enough for the job.
Wow. And picking up on also what you said regarding 21st century skills, yesterday we heard some questions about the difference between opinions and facts, and that social media doesn't really make the difference maybe sometimes, or people can't make the difference between them. So how do you think non-formal education and the combination of technology and non-formal education can educate people to actually learn the skills, not to just go with the flow and not trust any source that comes to them, but really think of what they're reading on social media?
I mean, one of the things we're trying to do is just that, create a sort of dedicated platform where kids can go and they know that what they're reading is authentic content, either because we've created it ourselves or we've sourced it and sort of vetted it ourselves. Because fake news is massive, and they're having to sift through so much, so much information, and it's hard to know what is truth and not. So I think if you start from when you're designing a product, if you start from some really fundamental good, first principles around what is it that the problems that exist in the world, and how can we try and solve them. So that's one way that we're trying to tackle that problem around fake news.
And also, I think critical thinking and all these kind of skills that we learn are really important to research better and really be critical of what we read, rather than just move with things as they are and just follow the group or whatever is being said.
I will come back. I will thinking about effects and benefits of technology to learning, really. We need to remember, learning is not about mechanical process. It's about human process. If technology can help us to customize content for any people, okay. And we can use data science for this. Moreover, after know the special needs for people, we can create, for example, public policy for more to improve teacher literacy with open access and especially free of charge. I know.
Yeah, accessible to everyone.
For example, I could never study English formally because my family could afford, but in the school, I remember they had a computer and free access to internet, and I used it to stay there to study English on my own and do my homework. So technology can be facilitator if we don't use it as an end in itself. For non-formal education, can contribute as a catalyst for each person's personal powers, I think.
Yeah, thank you. That's very helpful. So, coming to that point, so we know we are talking about the SDG on education, and it should be accessible to everyone and allow everyone to have access to technology. So how do we actually fight this inequalities in education? How do we give access to basic literacy and basic education through technology?
Okay, well,
Of course.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted, this is a little plug-in for what I do. At the Raspberry Pi Foundation, we make the Raspberry Pi. Does anybody know this? This is a computer. This is as powerful as your computer, as your desktop computer. You plug it into your keyboard and your mouse and your screen. It costs $35. We also made this smaller one, which is the Zero. It's less powerful, and you can buy it for $5. We actually gave it away in the cover of one of our magazines in the UK a couple of years ago. So it's not a gimmick, it's a computer, and the reasons why we created it this way and why we make it cheap is just to make it accessible for more people to study computing and to learn. And also because it's so cheap, people can buy many, and they can do all sorts of things and solve all sorts of problems. I have been very inspired recently by the story of a young boy, I think he's 14 years old, called Artesh. He lives in California. And in California, there are lots of issues with draft and the use of water, and he noticed his mother loved her garden, and they couldn't water it regularly, and you have to check so many things before you could decide whether to water your garden or not, or the sprinklers would go on when it was raining, and everything, for him, things weren't working. So he created, with a Raspberry Pi, he put a sensor to check how dry was the soil, also connected to that something to check the weather conditions, and then added another level to his programming to check whether it was a day, whether you were allowed to water your garden or not. So with all that together, the Raspberry Pi would kick in the sprinklers and make them water the garden. So he solved the problem for his mother, and they could keep the garden watered and healthy. But then he noticed that his neighbors had the same problem. So he added another line to his code by which, when all the conditions were right to water your garden and you wouldn't be fined if your sprinklers went on, he would just send a message on social media to say, hey neighbors, today is a good day to water your garden. And they would just turn on their sprinklers. So this is how making technology accessible for people to solve their own problems and also to solve the problems of others, like a good scout, right?
So it creates even more connections between people instead of separating
Yes.
as we perceive technology initially.
I think this is the most exciting thing about technology is that we have such an opportunity to level the playing field across so many different aspects, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing, and that's why I think you have this sort of uprising of tech entrepreneurs who are wanting to do good and solve some of the world's biggest problems, and I just think technology enables everyone to have equal access to, if you get it right, to proper careers advice, non-formal education, preparation for work, and access to job opportunities.
Yeah. And it also helps, as I see, more create that global kind of effort that we're all doing. Whether through, for example, having service hours, or adding the times that we do services, or posting on social media, or doing an effort all together to actually fit in the SDGs. So all that kind of common effort is even more recognized through technology and more communicated with practices.
Well, I work in a government institution. Mike is my friend. São Paulo City Hall don't thinking necessarily and offer access to technology. Early, the politicians thinking, it's my next election, I need a project, be good in the picture. But after, people like me thinking, well, how can I do this, and for this, in São Paulo, we created 3 integrated programs focused in democratizing the access of technology, digital inclusion, and promoting of the autonomy for any citizens. In São Paulo, access is guaranteed for Wi-Fi Livre SP until December of next year, providing free internet access in the most 600 points in vulnerable parts of the city. With digital inclusion, we are providing training for any citizens in our 132 telecentros. These spaces have computers, internet-free access, and qualified staff to provide guidance if people need help. But in my favorite place, at Fab Labs, we can see the magic happen. In the maker spaces, people can dream and make their ideas come to life. And the knowledge, I believe, comes during the process of execution. And we use Raspberry Pi, of course.
Cool. So we've talked a bit about the roles of the educationalists who are more like facilitating. We talked about a lot of peer-to-peer learning. But let's come back and think also on a practical level. How can we really integrate technology in non-formal education? So I would like first to hear a bit or to see more in the audience where we are today. So first, you're going to have another question on Slido. I hope the Wi-Fi will work this time. So can we get the questions? Yes. So the question is your organization using technology to enhance or complement the delivery of non-formal education today? So is your organization using technology today to enhance or complement the delivery of non-formal education? Can we get, no, it's not, it's working. No question. Okay. No?
Maybe.
Nothing yet?
Maybe show
Okay.
of hands.
So yes. So in a show of hands, who thinks that their organization is actually using technology to deliver their programs? Okay. That's like half of the room, I would say. So we're going to see a bit why we have those challenges today in technology. Okay. So first, it's interesting to see the challenges, but it's also interesting to look at the community aspect that technology creates, as we talked before. So in order to ensure learning by doing, which is something that we do, for example, a lot in Scouting and in other youth organizations, so experiential learning, in order to ensure social kind of skills and teamwork and all that, how do we integrate technological practices to make sure that we have those aspects of non-formal education really spot on during the learning process of young people?
We have to speak slower.
Okay, sorry. So.
Well, firstly, we need to see technology like an ally because of what technology means to youth of today. They access to information in real time, and in the last 5 years, we have seen many initiatives trying to use technology to change education, not using technology with partners for education. We can use virtual platforms like Prezi, that Igor represents, to connect people and organizations. Sometimes use gamification techniques with small groups. Well, then even people that live in isolated communities, in my opinion, have a technology. Sometimes maybe not technological toolkit, but social technology. And I believe that if we need choose between technological kit and personal development, we should choosing people.
They feed into each other. So yeah, so they feed into each other actually.
Yes,
So they're not
yes,
on opposite sides.
Because technology is the way, not the destiny.
Exactly, exactly. So Igor.
Yeah, definitely. I just feel like we need to embrace these new technologies. Like we have video is becoming a huge thing right now. Everybody's communicating through video. We have TikTok, we have Instagram, we have Prezi Video. Sorry. So I feel like if we can adapt these new ways of communicating, we can use the best of these new platforms through our best. So we need to be partners with technology and see what good we can take out of it.
Yeah. And what would happen if we don't embrace technology today?
I feel like if we don't embrace technology today in the non-formal education sector, tech companies will do it anyway, because they need to, tech companies will teach technology to people to acquire talent. So if we don't embrace technology today, we're just going to be behind, because the market needs workforce and we need people that are qualified to perform for this future generation, the next 5 years that you guys were thinking earlier this morning. So if we are not prepared for that, the companies and the market is going to try to push for it.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we will have young people leave what we try to give them because they won't be that interested in activities that don't involve anyway what their interests are or what their daily life is composed of today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think who was in the Fourth Industrial Revolution workshop yesterday? Yeah, it was really good, and well done to the to the facilitators. It was such a great session. But if we don't, beyond the Fourth Industrial Revolution is the Fifth Industrial Revolution, which is upon us, fast upon us, and that is around personalization. So how, without technology, how can we create a personalization for young people within non-formal education? We need to embrace technology and think of creative ways in which to ensure that they're not just ready for this revolution, but the next one in advance, ideally.
It's really about also making them take at their own pace and progressively learn whatever they want to learn and what they're interested in, so that it's more the process of learning rather than just the knowledge that they need to get at the end of it.
Yeah.
And there is a whole new trend where now students are bringing topics to the classroom and not the teachers anymore sometimes. So because they have access to so much information, so things are switching.
Okay, so interesting thoughts here. So when we think of all these kind of technological trends and everything that's happening around us, so in few words, what do you think some non-formal education or youth organizations need to take into consideration to modernize their organization? It's moving.
I listed some fundamental steps and have a project repository to share then with maximum people as possible, spreading the learning lessons, to use intensively social medias to communicate not only with people already engaged, but the community, local communities, to development activities and at maker spaces, or tech or innovation labs, to improve social impact. To stimulate the do it together, not just do it yourself, because we realize something with more people. Our knowledge, it's more, can I say, more passionate, more
Motivated.
significant.
Yeah.
To take technological devices as a friend, not adversaries. In my last suggestion, don't be afraid to use technology, because when you change the mindset, you change the rules and you can make everything.
Okay. So, thank you. So basically, if we think again on the relevance of non-formal education, we've touched on the self-directed learning, we've touched on the community aspect. It would be nice also to think a bit, especially coming from your backgrounds. I mean, many of you are from corporate backgrounds, many of you are from social businesses, some of you are from charity and from governmental institutions. So, or at least being supported by governmental institutions. So how can we integrate technology to increase the relevance of non-formal education, which is also based on building values? I'm going to urge you just to speak a bit less because of the time that we're having now. So, yeah.
Sure. I think we go back to the partnerships. We've been talking about partnerships over the last few days, and we have partnered with the Scouts UK to create the content for their digital maker batch. And just think of the name, it's Digital Maker. So we created a number of activities for young people to make things with technology. Some of the activities do not require computers, and some of them require very cheap equipment, like a microbit. So I think we switch again is the emphasis in not giving a badge for using digital, but giving a badge for making something with digital. So I think it's just helping young people to change the focus of their interaction.
Yeah. So it's not only use, it's creation of knowledge as well.
Digital making.
Yeah.
Yeah, just make sure that you find a company, if you're looking for a private sector partnership, look for a company that shares the same values as you do. For example, Prezi partners with UNFPA, and we created a whole toolkit material for training youth leaders, because we believe that that's a great idea and that's part of our values. So that's my recommendation.
Yeah. And how would it help in making policies, basically, or how would it help in policy making?
Oh, well, government investment in São Paulo in partnership with a non-profit organization is, I'm so sorry. I come back to my, government investment in partnership with non-profit organizations. It's how Fab Lab works, for example. The government knows it's necessary to invest in new spaces like these Fab Labs, stimulate non-formal education, but government also knows that has no such expertise for that. Thus, the government provides resources for experienced NGOs when improving technical skills. After that, the states oversees and measure of the efficiency of the work carried out in Fab Lab, for example. I want to tell you one story about a Brazilian state of Amazon region, the Pará, north of Brazil. And these states have a law demanding to the watercraft used to transport Amazon products like açaí to made of metallic structure. However, the Amazon watercrafts traditionally are made of wood, and this practice keeps story of development for all that region. So a professional that disappeared is the naval carpenter. Currently, there are old people who share their non-formal knowledge only orally. If we think that many of professions we know today will disappear, we can think of technology as a memory. When a technique, professional, or knowledge seems outdated by the economic context or technological evolution, the technology itself can be used to preserve this knowledge, ensuring the people continue to access to their roots, or even reinventing or adapting our techniques with the new tools. And government can provide institutions or tools or spaces for this happen.
Yeah. And I want to stress also the fact that a lot of data analytics that we get from technology helps us build programs in scouting or in other youth organizations or non-formal education settings. We use that as a base to actually build our programs, see if they were attractive, they were useful, they were actually learned something out of them, and then from these we can actually build again our game or our program, our educational program that brings fun, learning by doing, and at the same time make them learn something new.
Yeah.
I think we're going to move to the questions now from the audience. So I urge you all to add the questions that you want or to vote for the ones that you want. You can also ask some questions to the keynote speaker, as I understood before. So the first question that you have here is, how do we take partnerships between NFE, formal education, and corporations to effectively use technologies to teach the SDGs and creative, active global citizens. Anyone would like to answer that?
Wow.
That's a big question.
It's a big question, yes. But it's about partnerships, and it's about the method that we use to actually make sure we have this kind of global effort that we do towards the SDGs.
I can say what we're doing at Prezi right now, because we have people coming every day to consume content. So we are partnering with many public and private organizations to provide content for us. So next year, we're going to release a whole series on climate change, for example, where people are going to be able to come to our website, and they're going to have 10 different presentations, 10 different videos, and they can use that material at their school, and teachers can make copies of that material and use at school. And that's also kind of answering a little bit the question about verified content, that once we put a label or a badge there that says this content comes from UNFPA or WWF or something like that, people are going to trust that more because you are institutions of trust, for example.
Exactly. And also, I mean, we were talking a bit, Camila was talking about the way the government funds or helps support the technological advancement and non-formal education that is happening there. Any idea from other perspectives, like charity, for example, or
Yes,
like NPO?
Something that happened in the UK a few years back is the computing curriculum was due to be introduced to primary schools in 2014. And Code Club, one of our programs, was started in 2012. And although it wasn't a formal partnerships, lots of teachers took up running after-school clubs using the Code Club materials as a way of upskilling and getting ready for the introduction of the curriculum. So while the government was thinking, oh, we need to teach computing in the primary school, they were not thinking about the teachers and the needs of the teachers. And by accident, really, we complemented the work of the government and helped us really grow from 0 clubs to 2,000 clubs, like in 2 years. So without being a formal partnership, we were actually working towards the same aim.
Thank you.
Sorry.
We're going to take
the same
second
aim.
question and then wrap up, I guess. Yes?
Yeah, if I just take the first one, because it's the most popular. Does the constant push to use technology not increase the performance pressure of young people? This generation has existed knowing nothing other than smartphones and iPads, and they're self-selecting in how to use technology. And if you come to the global goal session later that I'm doing, shameless plug, I'll give an example of how my stepson has taught himself incredible skills using YouTube. So I don't necessarily agree that it's a push, and that somehow adults are sort of pressurizing kids to to use technology. They're finding other ways of getting the information they need because our education system is not fit for purpose.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, so basically, I mean, if we think of everything that we've said here, we've really focused on the ability of the learner to respond to changes and to everything that's happening around them by continuously learning and by finding his own knowledge or her own knowledge on technological platforms and actually processing this and creating knowledge as well through technology. So it's very much of a flexible and suitable and very trendy kind of learning methods that can be incorporated in non-formal education. So I guess this is a lot of thoughts that we could have. I think you're here now, so you could also have more discussions with all of us regarding the topics and the questions that you have. And I want to really thank you for your contributions, and a big round of applause for all the panelists that are here. And
Thank you.
your contribution to this forum.